She was clearly so emotional at the end there. Wow.
Alexandra Eala's Miami Open run gave fans unforgettable moments, proving she's more than just a rising star. She's a trailblazer for Philippine tennis.
We've got another couple of matches for you on this glorious court too. Clara Tussen, the 20th seed from the Denmark #1 and Auckland champ.
You know what's crazy? Alexandra Eala didn't just show up in Miami. She stormed the stage. A wild card entry, huge upsets, emotional fan moments. This was history in real time.
She's absolutely right. To come from a country like the Philippines where she has had nobody paving the way.
And here's where it gets even crazier. She wasn't even supposed to be there in the first place. Alexandra came in as a wild card, a spot that's usually given more for potential than for proven results. People don't expect wild cards to go deep, but she didn't just win a round, she marched straight into the semifinals. That's the furthest any wild card has ever gone in Miami, matched only by Justine Henin back in 2010 and Victoria Azarenka in 2018. Think about that for a second. Henin and Azarenka are legends. The whole vibe around this run was different. Every win felt like she was breaking new ground, not just for herself, but for an entire country that has barely seen tennis on this scale. Fans in Miami were buzzing, and back home in the Philippines, it was electric. People staying up all night texting each other, "Are you watching this?" Would you have guessed that a 19-year-old with zero blueprint from her homeland would pull this off? That's why this run wasn't just rare. It was inspiring, almost surreal.
And she absolutely believed that she could beat Iga Swiatek today as well. I think.
But here's the part that hits me hardest. Alexandra is doing all this with no roadmap. She comes from the Philippines, a country where tennis isn't exactly the national obsession. There's no long list of champions she can model herself after, no clear path that says, here's how you make it. And yet, she took that risk anyway. Imagine being so young, getting on planes, leaving family, stepping into academies overseas where everything feels foreign, and saying, yeah, I belong here. That's courage most adults don't even have. She's not just winning matches, she's opening doors. Kids in the Philippines who never thought tennis was an option suddenly have someone showing them it's possible. And if that doesn't give you chills, I don't know what will.
I think that would be a key shot for Eala, that backhand.
This part blew my mind. Alexandra wasn't just beating average tour players, she took down giants. First, Madison Keys. That match ended with Eala leaping into the crowd, hugging her family and coach like she couldn't even believe it herself. The emotion was raw, priceless. It wasn't just a win, it was proof she could hang with the best. And then came the even bigger shock. Iga Swiatek, a Grand Slam champion, world #1, the kind of player young stars usually crumble against. But not Alexandra. She kept her composure like a seasoned veteran. Even when she was down 2-4, she didn't panic. She stayed calm, stayed focused, and then closed it out like she'd been there a million times. You know what's crazy? Most teenagers would have folded after one upset win. They'd ride the high and lose focus. But Alexandra? She reset, came back sharper, and took out another champion. That's not luck, that's mindset.
This is why there's so much excitement around Alexandra Eala.
And this right here might be the scariest part of her game. Not the forehand, not the footwork, but the mindset. Most young players, when they take down a top seed, crash in the very next match. It's like their brains can't handle the high. But Alexandra, she hit the reset button as if it were nothing. There was a moment when she was down 2-4 in a set, and honestly, the script should have flipped against her. But she didn't flinch. No wild swings, no panic. She played point by point, almost robotically calm. And when she finally closed it out, it looked like she'd been there 100 times before. That's what separates flash in the pan from real champions. She already plays with the poise of someone who belongs in those late rounds.
Austrian world number 373. Then Kimberly Birrell, the Australian #1, will take on the Ukrainian #1, Marta Kostyuk.
But here's what made it all bigger than tennis. The way people connected to her. In Miami, fans were buzzing, chanting, and celebrating every point. But back home, it was a whole other level. Her family in the Philippines stayed up overnight just to watch. Think about that, sitting in the living room, in the middle of the night, holding their breath with every rally. And when she grabbed that microphone after her win, man, it was priceless. She clutched it like it was fragile, like she was holding on to the moment itself. The way she spoke, so authentic, so unpolished. It wasn't the usual rehearsed athlete speech. It was a mix of raw disbelief and quiet self-assurance. People felt that. You could see it in the comments and online reactions. She's one of us. That's why she's more than just a player. She's becoming a symbol. She represents possibility. Just when it seemed like the story couldn't get crazier, she was staring down her next mountain, a former world number 2. That's not the kind of matchup where young players usually survive. The stage lights get hotter, the weight of expectation doubles, and every mistake feels magnified. But here's the thing, Alexandra didn't walk out like an underdog. She walked out with belief. You could see it in her body language, the way she carried herself. It reminded me of when Serena was young, or when Nadal stormed into the French Open like he owned it before he even had a title. Confidence like that doesn't come from nowhere. It comes from inner conviction, from already picturing yourself in that spot long before you arrive. That's what makes her dangerous. She's not intimidated by the big names anymore.
And a magical run ends for the world number 140.
All right, let's get into that semi-final, because seriously, it was wild. Alex Eala going toe-to-toe with Jessica Pegula, that's Miami's Golden Girl, basically playing in her own backyard. The crowd? Electric. You could almost taste the tension. But here's the weird part. They didn't even start until 10:15 p.m. Who schedules a major semi that late? By the time they finished, it was nearly 1 a.m. I mean, even the hardiest fans looked like they'd pulled an all-nighter at a music festival. But nobody was budging. They were glued to every shot, every rally. Did the late slot rob it of some primetime shine? Maybe, but honestly, it didn't matter. Headlines everywhere. Teen sensation from the Philippines battling a top-seeded American under the neon lights. That's the stuff you remember. Pegula, total pro, handled it with class. The respect between them was obvious, kind of like the universe winking at us. Hey, this is a moment. It felt like a generational handoff, you know? The old guard sees what's next. Alex's Miami run wasn't just some blip on the radar. It was a straight-up jolt to the Philippines sports scene. Usually it's basketball, boxing, or maybe a little volleyball. Tennis? Not so much. But suddenly, Eala was everywhere. News tickers, social feeds. Even the aunties who only watch telenovelas were talking about her. It was like the whole country pressed pause to watch a teenager smash tennis stereotypes. But it didn't stop at home. International sports pundits started dropping her name, talking about her fighting spirit and cool head. How often do you see a Southeast Asian teen breaking into the tennis big leagues? Rare as heck. Filipinos everywhere suddenly had someone to root for on the world stage. And even non-Filipinos were jumping on the bandwagon, hyped by her story. She's not just repping the Philippines, she's carrying the whole region, showing that world-class talent can come from places nobody expected. Every time a little girl picks up a racket in Manila or Cebu, Alex is proof that, hey, you don't need to be from Europe to make tennis history. So the Miami Open's got this flavor. Nothing like your stiff, traditional tournaments. Hard Rock Stadium? It's more party than prim and proper. Some seats are basically plush couches, like you're at a fancy club instead of a sporting event. When Alex hit the court, you could feel the buzz. People didn't just clap, they hollered, waved flags, and chanted her name. Even at midnight, the crowd was going strong, like nobody had work the next morning. You had Filipinos waving banners and random fans who just loved an underdog. It wasn't just about tennis. It was like watching a legend in the making, something you brag about witnessing years later. The vibe, pure adrenaline. Nobody wanted to miss a single second. All right, so now everyone's asking, what's the next move for Eala? The Charleston Open? Some other big WTA stops? People are throwing out predictions like it's fantasy football. Wildcard entries mean she'll keep facing top seeds early, which is brutal, but honestly, the best way to level up fast. Every match is a test, a lesson, and sometimes a wake-up call. But that's how you grow. You don't learn much beating up on scrubs. Filipino fans are already plotting her schedule like over-caffeinated sports analysts. But it's not just about racking up wins. It's about watching her evolve. New shots, tougher mindset, bigger moments. Each tournament isn't just a line in her stat sheet, it's another episode in the saga. And honestly, who doesn't love following a good underdog story, especially when it keeps getting better? Eala's Miami Open journey wasn't just about one player, it was about the excitement young stars bring to tennis. Every generation has breakout stories, and she's quickly joining the ranks of names who shift attention back to the sport. When teenagers perform at the highest level, it gives tennis fresh energy. Think of how Coco Gauff shocked the world at Wimbledon, or how Carlos Alcaraz took over the ATP scene before turning 20. Alex's rise sits comfortably alongside those narratives. She represents what fans love most: unpredictability, passion, and a sense that the future is unfolding right in front of us. Her run mattered not just for Southeast Asia, but for women's tennis as a whole. The sport needs diversity in stories, heroes, and origins. Seeing a Filipina succeed shows that tennis is becoming truly global. For young players everywhere, it reinforces a simple truth: talent can come from anywhere, and determination is what carries you forward. Alexandra Eala's Miami Open run wasn't just about matches. It was about connection, history, and belief. She inspired fans at home and abroad, proving she belongs on the big stage. Her story is only beginning, and the world is ready to witness the greatness still ahead.